Good afternoon. My name is Brian Kramer. I'm the town manager in Pine Knoll Shores, and with me is Julie Anderson. Julie is the finance officer and the assistant town manager here in Pine Knoll Shores. I want to welcome you to the first iteration of presenting our budget message via video to our citizenry. I want to quickly tell you what this video hopefully accomplishes. As you know, we have to submit a balanced budget or approve a balanced budget by 30 June of each year. The town does. After 2 months of meetings and workshops and such, general statute requires that I, as the budget officer, submit a budget message to the Board of Commissioners. The budget message is a different document than the actual budget ordinance that's passed by the board. The budget message that I write to present to the board is required by law, and for 9 years I've written it, and I do not believe it receives very much visibility. So we're going to present it via video as well as written form. All this work leads to the passage of a budget ordinance, which in 2016 will take place on June 8th, following a public hearing, which is your choice, your chance to talk to the board about the budget. This video accompanies our public display of the budget on the website, the distribution of the budget via email, and also display at Town Hall, as well as the mayor's brief to the public on June 1st. Okay, this is how we're going to discuss the budget. We'll frame the discussion around our three major funds. I will discuss two of these, the general fund and the water enterprise fund. Julie will discuss the beach funds, and she'll also discuss the capital improvement plan and our debt service plan, which are two things that I thought a citizen might be interested in knowing in our budget. We will use the budget document that we advertise on the town website as further framework for our discussion. The document is titled FY 2016-2017 Proposed Budget. And I recommend you have this in front of you while we speak. Otherwise, I'm simply going to be reading off numbers off pages that you don't have. So I recommend you put the video on pause, go to our website and print off that document, or otherwise have it in front of you on another screen if that's possible. So with that, I'm going to go directly to the document I just referenced off the town website. And the first 4 pages of that are in fact the general statute required budget message that I presented to the board in public meeting on 25 May. I'm going to read to you just a couple of highlights from that, not the entire thing, because I think it's important that you hear the actual specific budget numbers. The budget proposed is of course balanced as required by general statutes, and I recommended, and the board subsequently approved, a public hearing on the budget at 6 p.m. on June 8th here at Town Hall. The proposed budget maintains that we maintain our tax rate at 19.7 cents per $100 of assessed value, that we maintain our $185 solid waste fee, which covers your garbage recycling and yard debris pickup, and that the ocean and non-ocean front municipal service districts that we save for our next beach renourishment remain unchanged at 6 cents for ocean front and 1.6 cents for non-ocean front. So no changes on taxes or fees planned for 2017. Moving on to page 2 of the budget message, the general fund comes in, the recommended general fund budget comes in at $3,530,000. I might also add that Julie forecasts that entering the FY our reserves will be at 1.8 million, which is a very healthy amount for a overall budget of 3.5 million. Our Water Enterprise Fund budget comes in at $815,000. This is set against the total net position for the Water Enterprise Fund, which is the equivalent of reserves of $525,000. The Water Enterprise Fund had a significant capital project this past fiscal year. $525,000 nonetheless remains a very healthy figure for a Water Enterprise Fund with that annual amount. Moving on to page 3 of the budget message, the beach funds will see an increase to our reserves for our next renourishment of $355,000, and we anticipate that entering the FY we will have $1.7 million in our reserve for our next beach renourishment. We also have 2 very small funds that we won't discuss here. One is a police separation allowance fund, which is a very small fund required by state law, in which we have to set aside a small amount of money for retired officers. And then additionally, we have a Kayak for the Warriors Trust Fund, which is the fund that we use to handle the finances of our annual kayak event. Both of those funds are fully audited, as well as our 3 major funds. I'm now going to move right into the general fund budget. So using that document that I referenced off the website, I'm going to listed page 1. It's listed on the top as general fund, and it has revenue description and expenditure details. Our budget for our general fund, again, is $3.5 million. I want to point out that $340,000 of that are capital projects. So our annual operations budget comes in at approximately $3.2 million, which is very consistent with what you see on the what you've seen year after year for the past 6 years. The other significant revenues for our general fund listed as other taxes and license are our sales and use tax revenues and our garbage collection fees, the $185 fee per household that I mentioned. Also under revenue, you'll see a transfer or appropriated fund balance number of $192,500. That's important that we discuss this, because what that means is money we're pulling from the reserves for this budget. The rationale behind that is we are going to use approximately $64,000 from our storm emergency reserve, which has $250,000 in it, to purchase 2 large 4-inch pumps that you've seen in town for stormwater issues. Additionally, the board's made the decision to fund the construction of the Mimosa to Arborvitae sidewalk segment in FY17. And that will come in at approximately $100,000. So that's the majority of that, the heavy majority of that number right there. Other highlights to point out on the revenues on page 1, we're legally limited to the amount of ad valorem that we're allowed to forecast. The sales tax number that I mentioned, that's obviously a consumption-based tax, so that's very much a guesstimate for all local governments. We also have included in our revenues 50% of our cell phone revenue. We have cell phone revenue mainly right now for cell phone antenna array on top of the tower near the aquarium. And this FY, you'll likely see cell phone antenna array going on top of the tower on the west end of town as well. I'm not going to go into expenditures on this page, because that's the whole point of this exercise. We're going to go into expenditures by department. So with that said, if you turn to page 2 of the document I referenced from our website, it's listed as general government, and it has information regarding the governing body, finance administration, and inspections. Again, page 2. Under governing body, our professional services other line includes things such as Municicode, which is the outfit that we have manage our code book, which is on our website and used for research by everyone, I assume. Engineering fees for any engineering work we do over the year that's not associated with a major capital project. Bank fees and attorney's fees. We also, of course, have our board salary and benefits here as well. We also have some dues and allocation expenses. I'll explain very shortly what those are. We're members in various organizations, North Carolina League of Municipalities, the local Chamber of Commerce. We also support our several civic organizations, to include the library, our garden club, our history committee, our CERT, and our park. Those are various expenses we incur to support these activities. The rest of these are self-explanatory. We support our Shoreline, which is a newspaper that you see, and also we have a benefit for all of our employees and volunteers for membership in the local gym. Moving on to finance and administration. For each department, I'm going to mention salary and benefits in terms of what I requested from the board for raises for employees, and I'll also move down to other expenses. For finance and admin, I requested 3% raises for 2 employees in this department. I also budgeted a 10% increase in medical insurance, anticipating a rise there based on what Blue Cross Blue Shield told me. For training in this department, we have a number of courses that any of us might attend here. The most significant, I would think, for the citizenry to know for this year is we're going to send one of our employees to UNC Chapel Hill for the School of Government's course in municipal and county administration. And the rest of this is fairly self-explanatory. I will mention the other administrative operating expenses here. We incur expenses for our Laserfish, which is our software to essentially scan and make searchable all of our documents. We contract out our IT support. We have several online support functions. We do GoToMeeting webinar functions, which allow some of you to listen to our board meetings by webinar, and we also have a contract for SurveyMonkey. Additionally, for FY17, we budgeted $1,500 for a town app. Again, for our capital items, Julie is going to wrap up for each department the capital items when she goes through the capital improvement plan. Continuing on page 2 for inspections, under the salary and benefits, I recommended a 6% increase for our building inspector, who came on new last year. He's level 3 certified and a floodplain manager, has been exceptionally busy and has done a good job, and is deserving of that. The salary line on this page is not just that one individual, also includes 20% of another administrator's salary who helps out in permitting and other things in support of the inspections office. The main other operating expense for this department, inspections, is code material that our inspector uses. Okay, I'm moving on to page 3, which is our public safety department. This one page, ladies and gentlemen, covers police, fire, EMS, and emergency management. Obviously, what you're looking at is a significant part of our operational general fund budget, and they do a great job. For the police, I recommended a 3% raise for 2 junior officers and a captain. One junior officer, I recommended a 5% raise when that individual completes an intermediate certification halfway through the year. Training on the police side is significant. The normal slate of schools you would expect an officer have to go through to certify or recertify. The ones that we would be familiar with is radar training, sobriety testing, intox training, and taser training. We also have one officer who's going to attend field training officer school, which is going to allow that officer to train newly joined officers to bring them up to speed and ready to go on shift alone. We have 2 officers in the police department taking advantage in the town's tuition assistance program. The tuition assistance program offers up to $3,000 a year for a town employee to get his or her next degree. And 2 police officers, 2 people in this department or in police are taking advantage of this. Our equipment maintenance for police mainly has to do with radios and computers associated with vehicles. We also have some uniform requirements, the most significant of which is getting reflective rain jackets for the entire 7-man department and our volunteers in police service, our VIPS personnel. Continuing with police is a significant software expense of $8,000 for 3 software packages that we use for either record keeping or research of some sort or the other. We also have a list of supplies to include ammunition, taser cartridges, radar certification material, golf cart stickers, and evidence supplies. This year in police, we are going to, in our police budget, we're going to purchase 2 handguns. 6 need to be replaced, and we're going to rotate that over 3 years. We're going to purchase 2 new tasers, a new PC for our police captain, a new fingerprint machine, and a new Kevlar vest. Julie will go over the capital plan again on the police side. Under emergency management, which also falls under public safety, we have the salary of a single individual here under emergency management. We're also going to, this one individual is taking part in our tuition assistance. We have a significant expenditure this year for OSHA certification material to include placards and chainsaw helmets, MSDS material, and as such. Last year we replaced the alarm system down at the public safety building, and we have alarm monitoring costs built into public safety operating expenses as well. Fire, on the fire side within public safety, I recommended a 3% increase for our firefighters. Our training and travel for fire is somewhat similar to police in that they have a number of certification and training courses. The firemen attend pumper certification, aerial certification, and ladder certification schools. Additionally, the fire department has a fairly significant medical supply cost for a number of items that are kept aboard our ambulances, many of which age out in a rather short amount of time, need to be replaced more often than we would like. But things such as this include electrolude pads, Cavicide, suction pumps, IV solution, and things such as that. That's the normal and significant supply operational side on the fire side to support them. Moving on to page 4, our public services department. You'll see at the top of page 4 on the salary line a rather significant change and increase in salary and benefits. This is due almost entirely to a salary adjustment due to a personnel change. Our previous water system operator is now our public services director, And whereas his budget was entirely 100% from the water fund, it's now split 60% water and 40% general fund. That's why you see that significant increase in salary and benefits there. I did recommend, in addition to that adjustment, a 3% increase for one individual and a 6% increase for another individual who's achieved water certifications as follows: the Seawell Operation Certification and Seawell Distribution. And this is one of our lower paid maintenance individuals, and we gave him recommended a 6% increase for him due to that. Our refuse and yard waste expenses are on this page, and that's that significant number that you see for refuse and yard waste collection. We this year put out requests for proposal, and Julie is responsible for this. I believe got us a very fair new contract with Waste Industries, which is largely responsible for us not having an increase in that $185 fee that I mentioned at the beginning. Maintenance in this department is significant. It includes vehicle maintenance on bucket trucks, on cherry picker trucks, on a number of trailers that we use. It includes equipment maintenance on all of our lawnmowers and other landscaping type material that you see our folks using. Building maintenance on our two public buildings, and grounds maintenance as well. The electric utility bill that you see here, the utility line that you see here, includes our street lights as well as our public building electric requirements. Under our POW bill expenses, you'll see this year some significant curbing work we're going to do at Mimosa, at Pine Knoll Boulevard, and at Oakleaf, where we've had deterioration of corners, and we're going to try to address that this year with with some curbing at those three locations. Additionally, we have $15,000 programmed this year for drainage improvement projects on the east end of town. That's not significant stormwater work as we've seen in the past, but some simple drainage improvement things we intend to do. And we also programmed $4,500 to have a road maintenance plan put together by an engineer who's going to help us prioritize what needs to be paved next. I'm now going to turn it over to Julie over on, one other item on page 4 regarding environmental protection, which is included there as well. Our mosquito aqua resin material, which is significant, also is included in these expenses. And we're going to send one public service employee to school to get the requisite training that the state requires for application of fertilizer and other chemicals on rights of way. I will now turn it over to Julie, and we'll move on to the debt service transfer.
Hi everyone, as Brian mentioned earlier, my name is Julie Anderson. I'm the Assistant Town Manager and Finance Director. I am going to speak off of page 6, which is our debt service schedule. It's the landscape page, kind of small print. This schedule shows you each long-term debt that we have and how it is broken out by fund, kind of off to your right, and I'll just go down this list briefly. We have a couple fire apparatus that we have debt on that are quickly getting ready to expire. One of them, the pumper, will be done being paid on in September of this planned fiscal year, 2016-2017. We, in fiscal year 15-16, the current fiscal year, have since paid off our small loan on the HVAC upgrade here in Town Hall. We have debt on the Knollwood lot that the town owns. that is budgeted for next year, and that debt expense is split between the general fund and the beach fund because that property is used for both a public beach access and for rescue ramp capability. Moving down, we have our debt on the Mimosa Bridge, and that expires in 2019, so we are still paying on that. We have an East End Stormwater project that we finished in fiscal year 2014. That is a zero interest loan through the state, so it's just a flat principal payment that we pay. And then we have a loan on our public safety building where we combined loans and refinanced them back in 2014, and that is strictly a general fund expense. So as you can see in the fund breakdown, our total debt payments for the general fund is about $292,000, and in the beach it's just under $40,000. At the bottom you see our water bond, which applies to the Water Enterprise Fund. But one thing I want to point out is for the last several years we have been paying down additional principal on this debt. So when you look at that payment, the standard payment would be your first line, totaling $203,000, but we've programmed in to pay an additional $64,000 in principal this coming fiscal year. That gives you a snapshot of our debt payments for 2016-2017. I'm now going to move on to page 7, which is the capital improvement plan that Brian spoke of. This document is separated by department. It will give you the department on the first column, what the capital expenditure is, the funding source that's planned, and then by year it has a breakout. And I'm only going to focus on the FY 16-17 year, obviously. So in finance and administration, we have 2 capital expenditures, and just for clarification, a capital expenditure by our board is anything that is over $2,500 per item as set by the board. So we have a tax software that's required in order for us. We have an agreement to collect taxes for Indian Beach, so we were required to purchase additional tax software. We have electronic personnel records capability now with an upgrade of our Laserfish system, and that is $5,700. Under public safety, there's, in police, we have a vehicle rotation plan, and that is to purchase a vehicle. It's $36,000 to purchase that vehicle. Moving on down under fire and EMS, another vehicle rotation. That is the purchase of 2 vehicles in that department for a total of $73,000. And then also under fire and EMS, a heart monitor, which we've applied for an AFG grant for that heart monitor to the tune of $40,000. Moving on down under transportation, we have Highway 58 intersection curbing, as Brian spoke about earlier, of $11,000. Sidewalk expense of $100,000. And that is being funded, as you can see in the funding source. That is coming from an appropriation of reserves. And then in the last category, under environmental protection, we have a water quality lab of $5,000, and then the 2 4-inch pumps for stormwater of $60,000. And that actually, even though it says general fund there on this document, that is an appropriation from designated reserves to pay for those pumps. So the total capital expenditures this year is $340,500 that is in this budget. Okay, I'm going to move on to page 8, which is our beach funds. These 2 funds were established in fiscal year 11-12 when we reestablished the municipal tax districts of the ocean and non-ocean front tax districts. The first one is our beach expense reserve fund, which is basically our operating fund. In here under revenues, we have sales and use tax, which is the sales and use tax portion attributable to our beach tax. That's our main source of revenue in this fund. Our second source of revenue is parking fees from paid parking at our 2 large beach accesses. As you can see on the map behind me, we have 11, but we collect paid parking on the weekends at Memorial Park and Iron Steamer. That money, many people will ask, what does this money go to? That money covers maintenance of those accesses and the lease payments on our accesses. If you look down further under expenditure description, you'll see beach parking and maintenance, which is salary and benefits for the labor associated with maintaining the beach accesses as well as paid parking. Under other, that is your maintenance line, $17,800. And then we have our debt and lease payments, the debt associated with Knollwood, which I just spoke of, and then our lease payments, which are associated with leasing Memorial Park and the other beach accesses that we have leases on. There is no capital outlay programmed for this coming year in this fund. And then in the Beach Expense Reserve Fund, any money that is left over after these expenses is then transferred to the Beach Capital Reserve Fund to keep building that fund for future nourishment. And that's what the $41,000 is that you see there about midway down the page. Moving down the page to the Beach Capital Reserve Fund, this is our large saving fund for future beach nourishment. Our main source of income, of course, in this fund is our beach tax. As Brian mentioned earlier, there's no change in this tax rate. It's still 6 cents per $100 of valuation for oceanfront and 1.6 for non-ocean. There's interest on investments, of course, in this fund, and then the transfer in from the Beach Expense Reserve Fund of their fallout. There are no expenses planned in this fund. The expenditure, which is the offset, is just to build that reserve. And that reserve is built up for either unplanned renourishment due to hurricane, storm, etc., or planned renourishment in the future. And now we'll move on to water.
Okay, I'm going to move on to the Water Enterprise Fund. I'm on page 9 of the document that we've been referencing. Very quickly on the revenues, I'll hit 2 of the lines. Our main revenues are, of course, water service revenue from the sale of water in our system of $720,000. We then additionally have 50% of our cell phone lease revenue that we direct into the Water Enterprise Fund. Those are the main revenue sources for our Water Enterprise Fund. I'll focus right in on the expenditures. Here you see the salary adjustment downward that I mentioned to you earlier regarding the personnel change of the Public Services Department. So a individual who previously had 100% of his salary from the water fund now has 60% of his salary. So you see that adjustment there. Under professional services here, we have the following expenses included in the line that you see. We have our telemetry system, which supports communications between the towers and our production wells to keep the pumping cycle appropriate. We have a expense to Carteret Craven Electric Cooperative for billing for the new smart meter project, in which by now you all know you're getting one bill for water and electric combined. That's $800 per month. We're just under $10,000 per annual. We also have accounting and auditing costs associated with the Water Enterprise Fund, as well as maintenance and IT savings this year due to our work with Carteret Craven Electric Co-op. We also have salary savings associated with the change with Carteret Craven Electric Co-op, as well as we have less administrative work taking place here in Town Hall associated to the water utility billing effort. We have under supplies and chemicals the normal chemical requirements you would see with 4 major production wells in our system. We also have maintenance requirements. The very significant cost for an annual $26,000 contract for maintenance of our 2 large towers, our 2 towers. And then we also have significant expenditures for maintenance lines for our wells, for our pumps, for our water mains, and our 4 well houses. The utility line here that you see provides for electrical costs for our 4 production wells, which are very, very significant. Julie has already discussed debt for the Water Enterprise Fund. Also, under some other expenses here, that includes things such as insurance payments associated with the Water Enterprise Fund. We have a very significant emergency maintenance line, which is the bulk of the $43,700 that you see there, as well as lab analysis requirements. That completes the Water Enterprise Fund work or budget that I want to discuss here, and also completes the discussion with the exception of our Water Enterprise Capital Plan. Do you want to talk that, Julie, please?
Sure. I'm looking at page 10, and if you see at the top of page 10, there are right now just planned capital expenses in fiscal year 16-17 and in 17-18. In 16-17, we are planning to complete the remainder of our smart meter installation, mostly on retrofitting the compound meters, and that right now is estimated at $38,000, and that should finish us out with converting all of our meters over from manual read to smart meters and have everything be read by Carteret Craven. Also included in the capital budget in the Water Enterprise Fund is the Asset Management and System Mapping Program. That would be a system to give us a good feel and system mapping of our entire water system through GIS, and that is $22,000. And then the final capital expenditure that we have planned for fiscal year 16-17 is a interconnect of our water system with Bogue Banks Water, and that is a shared expense with Bogue Banks Water, and our portion of that would be $50,000. So therefore, that totals $110,000 in capital expenditures for the Water Enterprise Fund for fiscal year 16-17.
So the purpose of this discussion was to give some granularity to the budget document that we hung on the website to prepare you for the public hearing. It's clear you can drill down further into any of these numbers, and we welcome anyone to contact Julie or I if you're interested in doing that. And we'll continue to do this each year to make sure the entire town understands what they're paying for. So thank you very much.
Thank you.